Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another Launch and Learn with Product Management. This afternoon we have Steven, Jason, Cliff, Sharon, Brian, and myself, Lee. And Jason is going to be presenting our new global attributes. Take it away, Jason.
And then finally we've got global attributes. Now, global attribute is somewhat of a different animal. A global attribute is a stored value. It's a single value or a group of values, but whereas a category attribute can have a default value, but then individual values for each category record, that's a relationship that you can have. A global attribute only has the one single value. It sounds less flexible, but what it actually does is allow for a lot more flexibility. So, for example, what we've done here is we've added a global attribute, which is the like this on Facebook widget code. And it's really pretty simple. What it meant was that in order to add that, we created a global attribute, and all the attributes are going to be managed from the same place, which is under setup. So when you go to set up attributes now, you're going to have the ability to filter by global category or product, search for individual ones, our typical paginated grid, and create and edit attributes. You'll find it in the same location as it was with product attributes. It's under setup attributes, but now we have the ability to create category, product, or global attributes. And our standard search control will let you search through the results if you have a ton. You can also filter by a global category or product and create new attributes. And when you create new attributes, if you notice, global will only give you the default value. That's all you can populate. Now you can, of course, change it to short text or long text. And one of the things, we've shown you the Facebook JavaScript widget. And the Facebook JavaScript widget, really simple, provided by a third party. Now it can be plugged in. If the customer wants to take it off at some point, all they have to do is pull that out of the master template or just pull the default value out and it'll stop showing. So global attributes are a great way to allow our custom teams in Jacksonville and Shavertown to create JavaScript widgets that can be used. And I'm going to show one example of what was done on a different store platform. And global attributes is going to allow us to do those same kinds of custom features. So let's take a look real quick at customer testimonials. Now, customer testimonials, this is on a different platform, but what this is doing is actually taking a static set of values and just using JavaScript to cycle through them. Very simple. So if we were to set that up on our store platform, the end result would look like this. The merchant would come to the Manage Attributes page, and they would fill in the actual testimonials. And they could probably just separate them with a line break and fill in the next one. Easy enough. Using JavaScript on the scripts tab, they could call this attribute and then get the cool behavior where it randomly cycles through them. But being able to render this value where the merchant has easy control over changing the content without having to change the complex JavaScript in the template, that's a pretty big win, and that should allow for the creation of a lot of cool widgets. And it actually brings up an interesting point. Where all can you use global attributes? So global attributes can be put into any page in the system because they're not relational and they don't depend on whether or not you're loading a category or a product, and they're those values. You can insert global attributes into master templates, custom pages, category or product templates. And I'll stop there because there's actually a pretty interesting scenario where we can also merge global attributes into email templates for autoresponders and broadcasts. And we're going to do a separate video about that, but that's going to be very cool. It's going to open up a lot of flexibility where merchants can merge content into an autoresponder dynamically or a series of autoresponders without having to actually go change every single autoresponder.
So it's possible with a Facebook account to get set up as a developer by scrolling to the bottom of your Facebook page, clicking on the developer link, Essentially, this gives you the option to provide a mobile phone number, which it will send an activation code to. That activates you as a developer and provides you the ability to make greater changes to your Facebook page, as well as access some of the widgets that they've got available. So in this case, I'm using their like button widget to generate a like button for my store's main page. This can also be done for each individual product page, so you can actually go through and, using this widget, create a specific like button that will like that product in particular, and then if someone were to like it on their Facebook page, it would direct anyone checking it out specifically to that product, and it would also label it as such. So the widget provides you with a couple of options to customize the look of your like widget. Basically, you've got width options if you need to make it smaller. You can choose to enable or disable the faces, the pictures of people who have liked your site. It will only really render pictures of people who are actually your friends on Facebook. Typically, you won't end up with an instance where you've got so many faces that it actually alters the look of your website, but just to be on the safe side, you might want to disable that. And in this case, because we're putting it on a dark background, we're going with the dark color scheme, which basically it doesn't appear with this black background behind it, but it makes the buttons lighter and it makes the fonts lighter so that they're a little more visible on a dark background. So by generating that, it pops up in the window, we copy our code, and now, while previously I had the code written right into the template, we're going to use an attribute this time. And the reason for that is because maybe it's not just Facebook that we want to add to our social media like icons. We might also want Google+, as that's pretty popular, and Twitter, obviously. So when you get into those sorts of things, you could end up with a fairly large chunk of HTML that's going to occupy this box. And it's really quite easier to edit over here than it is on a master template screen, because at least this way you're not going to affect anything else. Any changes that you make here will just affect the attribute itself, which is just one line of code that gets dropped into the template. It's very easy to make your changes that you want to the social media attribute without actually affecting the layout of your page. So we're going to save our social media attribute. That shows up now as a global attribute. Going back to our master template, we'll open it up, and then I've put it into the footer links div. Clicking to insert our merge data, we can scroll to the bottom, find our global social media attribute, drop it in with a click, and after saving that, it will now render the Facebook like component in our footer links.